I want to delve some more into Australia's energy madness. And one of the points I keep coming back to is the futility of what we're doing here. I mean, if turning ourselves into an energy basket case was doing some good, if paying more for our electricity was saving the planet or changing the world, you might be able to make an argument for doing it, right? You'd probably say, let's do it more efficiently by using nuclear power instead of embarking on the world first renewables plus storage experiment, sure, but at least you could argue that your emissions cuts mattered. But they don't, of course. Australia is responsible for about 1% of global emissions, and while we've destroyed our energy grid to cut our emissions, the rest of the world ploughs on. Global emissions continue to rise by 50 or 100 times our cuts every year. So whatever we're doing to ourselves, it's not changing the climate, not helping a jot. Even the former chief scientist once admitted that. We could shut down our whole country and those emissions would be made up for by the growth in China and other countries' emissions within a few weeks. So how can Labor justify what they're doing to us? We all know the pain, the electricity price and reliability pain, but there's no gain. So why are they doing this to their own country? Well, the answer is more spin, more nonsense. They're trying to convince us that what we're doing actually matters.
So here are the top 3 things to say when someone says, but Australia's only 1% of emissions, so what we do doesn't count. Firstly, in international terms, we're a pretty big emitter, 16 out of the around 200 countries in the world, and close to the top in emissions per person. So what we do counts. Secondly, the world's top 5 emitters account for 60% of emissions. The rest of us, countries like Australia, count for 40%. So what we do counts a heck of a lot.
What a fool this bloke is. His little diagram on the whiteboard with writing some numbers there, it means nothing. It just confirms we're only 1% of global emissions and those global emissions are rising. So there's no scientifically, there's no impact, rationally, factually, there's no benefit from Australia's actions. And Bowen knows it. So he just squiggles away with his whiteboard and pretends otherwise. It's embarrassing. And he says, by the way, that we're one of the highest emitters in the world per capita. So what? What about if we look at another metric, emissions per square kilometre, for instance? Then we're ranked 90th in the world. 90th. A modern economy like ours, 90th in the world when our emissions per unit of land are compared to the rest of just about every other country in the world. Just tiny, absolutely tiny. So we should be the envy of the world, such a low emitter per space, per area, per square kilometre. Look, we make no difference, we can make no difference, and Bowen can't face reality. In fact, he's so desperate. Listen to what he trots out.
And thirdly, we can help the rest of the world reduce emissions through our great renewable energy, our critical minerals, to become a renewable energy superpower to help countries that rely on fossil fuels currently rely on renewable energy in the future. So what Australia does really matters, and we have to keep going.
Yep, seriously, he rolls out the renewable energy superpower malarkey. How do wind turbines on our beautiful hills or off our beautiful coast, how do they create a renewable energy superpower? They've made us a basket case, not a superpower. His whole superpower fantasy relies on somehow exporting renewable energy. And you know how you do that? Well, you can't. But Bowen and Labor pretend you'll be able to do it by exporting green hydrogen. And I've already shown you how fanciful that is. It's just not happening. So we see again what a con this is, a renewable energy con, damaging this country, probably for generations to come, with no environmental benefit. For the sake of this country, Chris Bowen needs to be voted out of government. Let's get some expert advice on all of this green hydrogen malarkey. I want to go to Aidan Morrison. He's the Energy Program Director at the Centre for Independent Studies. Thanks for joining us again, Aidan. I'm fascinated in green hydrogen. So many projects up here. You've really done a scan of the whole country across green hydrogen projects. I'm surprised there's so many and that so many are falling over. Can you explain what's going on?
Yeah, this is what happens when the myth of a robust pipeline of projects finally gets burst. Because actually there is a much, much longer list of projects that are out there, and they've just been proposed. They're still in the concept stage. But really all it is a long sort of fashion parade of ideas, of dreams, of posturing. It costs very little to create a plan and kind of float it on paper. Sometimes it's very beneficial for corporate companies to be able to demonstrate that they have efforts or plans to move in these directions if they're trying to kind of indicate that's the attitude and intention. But really they don't have to put a lot of money down until they finally get to the point of starting to build something, and at that point they all fall over. All the people who actually at the point of having to put money on the table always walk away, and that's just the case when you've created basically a big fashion parade of projects that never had any economic sense behind them. At some point, one by one, they just drop out and get cancelled. And just a few have been cancelled so far. There's many more to come.
Yeah, I put up a list at the start with some major projects cancelled, 11 major projects. Some of them have had government money put into them, particularly the South Australian ones. They've got a whole hydrogen office there funded by taxpayers. A lot of them have had the incentive of tax subsidies on the table. Has much government money actually been wasted, or is it just sitting there waiting for them to claim if they actually get off the ground?
Look, most of it is still in the latter category where it's there to be claimed, like the $2 per kilogram tax rebate. The funny thing is $2 per kilogram is about the price you'd need the final product to be for it to ever have a chance of having a market for it. And we're willing to pay that much just as a bonus off the top to bring the cost down a little bit, which is quite outrageous. But at the moment, the real problem with the hydrogen dream is that it underpins the whole narrative and makes it possible for things like the Integrated System Plan to basically, on hopes and dreams of future hydrogen exports, overinvest consumers' money on building massive transmission lines around the country for a business case that doesn't stack up when all the hydrogen projects fall over and the renewable energy that's meant to flood into those at just the right times doesn't get flooded in just the right times. So it's been used as a prop, a crutch to basically keep a whole bunch of overinvestment, which is driving up electricity prices, going. And that's really sad for energy consumers.
Wow. And there's so much spin. Listen to our Labor government here.
We have an exciting future going forward in terms of green hydrogen.
Only Labor has the plan to ensure that Australia is part of and is leading that hydrogen revolution.
Yeah, the green hydrogen revolution. Give us the reality here, Aidan. Is hydrogen being manufactured in a green or renewable way anywhere in the world on a commercial scale?
Basically, no. Like, it's even hard to figure out what the current price is because there's just nobody really trading it or buying it, producing it on a commercial scale. It's just so expensive and difficult to create the electrolyzers. There's so many phase changes to create the hydrogen then convert it back to electricity. It's extremely inefficient in terms of end-to-end energy usage. You have to waste something like 70% of the energy in total. So it's not useful for cars. It's not useful as a big transport system. It does not replace gas well. It's quite difficult to handle. It embrittles metals, so it's difficult to transport, always will be, much more so than something like liquefied natural gas. So there will be no revolution in that direction, and that's now been admitted even by a lot of green groups that are now admitting that it was overhyped massively, and they're trying to argue that other alternatives such as ammonia, etc., will be more viable. But basically the hydrogen bubble has well and truly burst. There is no hope there's going to be a hydrogen superpower from Australia or anywhere else in the world.
Aidan Morrison, thanks so much for joining us. There you go. There's the expert verdict. The green hydrogen revolution is over, but Labor's still talking about it and pumping your money into it. The delusion in this country is over the top.